Good morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this magnificent Monday. And it is magnificent because God has created this day for us. It's going to be a great day weather-wise, but it's going to be a fantastic day as we get to serve the Father. He's blessed us so much, keeping us safe from the storms this week. And I know some in our area had some damage, but all life was spared in our area. But there's so many others that are hurting. Pray for these folks and figure out a way that you can minister to them some way. If nothing else, contribute to disaster relief programs, especially our Alabama Baptist Disaster Relief. What a great way to minister to people through this time, and pray for our first responders as well as they're out there working. But right now we're in Galatians chapter 2, picking up in verse 10. Remember, Paul is defending his apostleship, defending their ministry to the Gentiles, talking about the council in Jerusalem in Acts chapter 15, where they went to tell the Jerusalem apostles what was going on among the Gentiles. And ultimately, what Paul says is, hey, they agreed with us that God is working. And look at what he says in verse 10. They desired only that we should remember the poor, the very thing which I also was eager to do. See, now that's ministry. Because, see, there were these Judaizers, these Jewish false believers who were pretending to be Christians, who were saying, look, yeah, it's okay to trust in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, but you got to be a good Jew first. You got to be circumcised. You got to follow the dietary restrictions. And ultimately the council said, no, none of us could ever do that, not completely. And so we're going to say it's the grace of God through faith in Jesus Christ alone. That's it. But we do want you to do this one thing. Remember the poor. Minister to the poor. And understand that is a big deal, because throughout the Old Testament we see this again and again. God speaks of the importance of taking care of those who can't take care of themselves. Now, understand those who can't take care of themselves and not those who won't take care of themselves. Sometimes we do more harm in trying to help people by giving them money, when we ought to be helping them to overcome addiction, ought to be helping them overcome laziness, ought to be able to help them overcome whatever it is that is keeping them from being the kind of people who work. Paul tells us in his letters to Timothy that if you don't work, you don't eat. And so many times we take pity on people, and I have a compassionate heart. I want to give to everybody who's in need. But God says no to me so many times because he wants them to see the need to stand up on their own 2 feet. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to help them to stand up on their own 2 feet. You remember the old adage, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man to fish, and he will eat for a lifetime. Be able to feed his family and take care of others. And see, that's the thing that we need to do. Encourage people to get back into the workforce. Help people to find that place where they can serve so that they can take care of themselves. But for those who need it, for those who are in need, we need to give, and we need to give graciously, and we need to give generously. And that's what Paul is teaching here. He is teaching us that we must give to the poor. And Paul says, that's the very thing I was eager to do. And we all are. I think those of us who are true believers in Jesus Christ, we want to minister to those in need and whatever it takes. But you remember when Peter was approached, or when they were coming to the temple and they had the beggar that was asking for money, Peter said, silver and gold have I none, but what I have I give unto you. And our first priority has to be to give them Jesus. And once we give them Jesus, once they come to know Jesus, then they will see their need to do for themselves what they've not been doing. You understand what I'm saying? I hope you do, because I want you to know I love ministry and I love helping those who are in need. But we must not enable those who are using money for things that they shouldn't be using it for by giving them more. We need to help them in the ways that they need help. And the first thing they need is a relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, unless you think that all of the apostles were perfect, they weren't. Remember, the Apostle Paul tells us, he says, the things that I ought to do, I don't do, and the things that I shouldn't do, I do, just like you and me. Well, as we come to verse 11, I want you to see this. He says, now when Peter had come to Antioch, I withstood him to his face because he was to be blamed. Now, isn't that interesting? Peter, the bold apostle, the one that Jesus gave the great statement that upon this rock, not Peter, but upon his confession, I will build my church. Even Peter makes mistakes. Now, I'll tell you what that mistake is tomorrow. But right now, I want you to focus on this. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But the key is coming to understand our lack of perfection and confessing it to the Father. Think about that today. Be blessed, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.